today. So we're here at Swainsfield, and what we decided to do was take the front and the side wall down, so we've got a bit more of a view from the living room, and that's given us a kind of, it feels like we're getting on. We're kind of down to the bottom of the walls along here, and yeah, we can see real progress being made. We've got probably 4-6 weeks left, and we're now down to the first floor is off. The roof timbers from the ceiling have come off, and we've sent back 320-ish bags of stone, which have about 1.5 tons in them. So you can do the maths to work out how many that is, but lots and lots of stone, and we've been numbering them, working out where certain ones go so that we can put it back together. And it's been a really nice summer actually, and the weather today is a little bit grim, but actually we've had a really nice time. We've been really blessed with lovely weather. It's meant we can get on, and we're really pushing towards having the whole farm down. So as we're taking the building down, we're finding out all sorts of things about it that we didn't know beforehand. We had a pretty good idea of it when we looked at it, but as we take the walls down, we find things inside the walls, we find things behind the plaster, and that gives us an idea of the long history of the building. So it wasn't built in one go, it was built over a series of generations, over a couple of 100 years, and people have done different things. And even this morning we found out there's been a lamp niche next to the fireplace here. So you can see in here there's a nice big flat stone there, and then just up from it there's a nice vertical. Now this has lime wash on the back of it, which is not, you'd normally put on the inside of the walls rather than like on the kind of front face in the rooms, rather than inside the kind of heart of the wall. And when we look at it, we can also see there is a line in here, and this looks like it's been a little lamp niche that's been filled up at some point. We didn't know that until we took the plaster away, until we took this wall away and started to see inside the wall. So that's the kind of thing that we're finding out that's helping us understand not just the use of the building in the 50s, but the use of the building much before that as well. So as well as the differences in kind of lines between stones and different arrangements of stones, it's also the type of stone, the type of mortar is something that gives us a clue that something might be a different age. So here's a really good example, just as Paul's taken that out. You can see you've got the lime plaster on there that's got hair in it that's holding it together. That's been on there, and then this greyer stuff in here, that's been put in when they filled it in, and that's a much later, much harder kind of a mix. So you can see there's a difference between the age of the things, and that's what we're doing throughout the building, is looking and seeing where they've used different materials. So as I was talking about different materials and building lines, there's a really nice one in here. You can see on this wall you've got two quite obvious straight building lines, and they only came off as we started to chip off the lime wash, and there were years and years, loads and loads of different layers, kind of like a pasta parcel almost, that people have kind of built up different layers, and you peel those off. And sometimes we come off in a block, and here we kind of saw this really nice, what looks like a doorway actually. We found some wooden lintels inside the wall which might have been taken off from here, and this goes in right where the fireplace was. So they've either changed the fireplace or they've replaced the sides on either side. We can't quite work out at the moment which bit is earlier, but you can clearly see that these are kind of 3 different sections of the wall. The middle one has lots of bricks in it, which is interesting. As we get those out, we'll start to get a good look at those bricks. In some ways, are much easier to date than stones, because you can work out when they were built, and possibly from the company mark if it's got it in. If it's just a kind of plain handmade brick, you can look at the thickness of them and work out how old they are. So we can do quite a lot of kind of archaeology work in terms of looking at dating a particular part of the building from bricks. So I'm really excited about the bricks being in there. It means we can kind of work out what we're looking at. And behind me you can see there's some timbers there. Those are the door frames, and they've come out, they're labelled from exactly where they come from, and we'll either put them back if they're in good enough nick, or we'll get replicas of them made using the same kind of joints, the same kind of wood, the same kind of ironwork, so that we get a really accurate representation of the farm. So certain parts of the building, as we take them down, Paul and Cos between them are removing the stone. I help every now and again if there's a really heavy one that needs 3 people to lift, but basically they are doing the work of taking it down, using, lifting every single stone is lifted by them by hand, and then it's put into a bag, and the bag I then will label that depending on what part of the building it's come from. And I also put tags onto the the timber as well, so we know where that's come from. This is an example of one of the tags. It's got codes on it. So this one says Spainsfield, main buyer face 4, which is this front face here, and that it's a doorway, and this one timber is the western jamb, so it's come from that side. So that gives us an understanding of where the timber has come from, so that when we kind of have it back in the box as a jigsaw, if that makes sense, then we can kind of know where the individual pieces go. And that's the day-to-day stuff that we're doing, really, is taking it down, and as it's taken down, taking photographs, doing little drawings, writing descriptions of what we find, and making sure that all the stuff is tagged and labelled so that we understand where it came from and where it's going back to. So Spainsfield is probably going to take us about another 6 weeks or so to take down, I think. It depends on the weather in some ways. Today it's a bit whited out, so it doesn't really affect us, but if it starts to get wet or snowy, then that really does make a difference. But it'll be about 6 weeks or so to take it down, and then it'll take us about a year to put it back up. And we're not planning to do that straight away, but the hope is that we'll do it within 3 years. So by, what year is it now? So by 2019 we should hope to have Spainsfield back up and open to the public, and they can enjoy this wonderful building as much as we have.